This is Lara Logan, was once considered a legitimate investigative journalist. She was with CBS. Was it CBS or I don't know. I don't remember who she was with, but really valuable, important, well-read, good journalist at one point in time, and now full-blown QAnoner. And it's so entertaining and bizarre to hear some of the things that come out of her mouth. So listen to what she had to say here. This clip, by the by, is from July 13th, 2024. Check this out.
Back a little bit further. Who got Jimmy Carter elected? You know, if you remember, he was elected because of the Iranian hostage crisis, right? And what
I'm not going to accept that, but okay, go on.
right? And what did they do? The CIA got their friends in Iran to make sure that those hostages were not released. And that was the number one issue on which he came to power. So when you start to unravel these relationships, what you find.
I do remember that there was an Iranian hostage crisis, and I do remember that the CIA overthrew Iran, the Iranian government, and installed a puppet dictatorship, the Shah of Iran. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly. Not good. Honestly, might have been the worst thing the CIA has ever done in its history, overthrowing Iran the way they did. But okay, what about it? Go on.
Start to unravel these relationships, what you find is that there are factions in every part of the world, which may explain why people like, for example, Adolf Hitler, before the Second World War, where did he go? He went all over the Islamic world, right? He was making.
Hitler went to the Islamic world? I've never heard any evidence for that. I'm not saying it's not true. I've just literally the first time I'm hearing of it is from Lara Logan, and she should be distrusted. Literally every word out of her mouth.
World, right? He was making his deals, and so these relationships are really represented today in these global institutions. And you know, it wasn't so long ago, maybe 20 years ago, that you would look at people, preppers, and you know, who would say that the UN is trying to take over the world, and you would think, gosh, these.
You would say who is you in this scenario? Who is we or they? Who says this? The UN is trying to take over the world? Like what?
These people in the mountains in America, they're kind of nuts.
Right.
Like, why do they think this? And what do you see today? You see the United Nations bringing in a charter on sexual rights for the child. What is?
Who brought in this charter? Sexual rights for children? What? Let's find out, shall we? Here are just a few examples of sexual rights for children that she's talking about here. The UN recommends that children aged 5 to 8 learn to recognize and reject bullying and violence. This is under comprehensive sexuality education. And that children aged 12 to 15 learn that sexual abuse, assault, and other forms of violence are human rights violations. The UN also recommends that adolescents aged 15 to 18 learn about consent in sexual relationships. That's super important. Oh my God, yes, I love it. The UN's UNFPA works with governments to implement sexuality education programs in schools and communities. I love it, yes. I am all for this sexual rights of children bill or whatever. They probably could have named it better, but yes. Services for adolescents. The UN recommends that adolescents have access to services that address their sexual and reproductive health needs, including education, counseling, and health promotion. These services should respect adolescents' privacy, confidentiality, informed consent, as well as their cultural values and religious beliefs. Yes. Oh my God, I am so for this. And here's number 3, raising awareness. The UN has observed World Day for the prevention and healing from sexual abuse to raise awareness of the issue and to promote the prevention and elimination of child sexual abuse and exploitation. The UN also calls for holding perpetrators accountable, ensuring access to justice for survivors, and promoting healing and dignity. Yes, 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 yes. I love it. I love everything about it. There isn't a single bad word in this entire breakdown. Absolutely. Now, what is she complaining about exactly?
think, gosh, these people in the mountains in America, they're kind of nuts.
Right.
Like, why do they think this? And what do you see today? You see the United Nations bringing in a charter on sexual rights for the child.
Did you read them? Did you even skim them? Did you read the titles? The titles, at least. Anything. Of course she didn't. She doesn't give a shit. You know why? She's a propagandist. Through and through. It's all about propaganda with Lara Logan, sadly. Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
What does that tie into?
Yeah.
Well, that ties into cultural Marxism, right? Which they now try to tell you is a buzzword of the far, far, far evil right.
Yeah, it is, actually. And let me tell you why I say that. Cultural Marxism is the same as cultural Bolshevism or cultural communism. And here's the idea. Communism is the idea that we live in a commune and everybody is equal, and I'm giving you like a dumbed down parody that these people seem to believe is how communism is supposed to work. This isn't really how it works, but just bear with me. In communism, you live on a commune, or even if it's like a countrywide thing, everybody is given the exact same amount of money, no matter what they do. Certain people are chosen to go to school, certain others are not. Certain people are farmers, certain others aren't. And all of the money is spread across everybody so they can live a happy life and there's no poor class, basically. It's not how it works, not how it was outlined, but okay. Cultural communism is the idea that people want equality over opportunity, right? So if you have somebody who is objectively better at lifting weights than somebody else, say they've been lifting weights for 10 years and they weigh 160 pounds and it's all muscle, versus the guy over here has been lifting for 2 weeks and he weighs 130 pounds. Now, equality of outcome in their mind is where the 130-pound guy gets a participation trophy at least. And in an ideal world, he will be given like a handicap so that he can more easily match the guy who worked to be where he is. In reality, that's not how it works. That's not how society works. That's not how it's ever worked. Nobody is in favor of that. No one will ever be in favor of that. But you know who popularized that idea? You're going to laugh when I say it. Hitler popularized cultural Bolshevism. The Bolshevist party was what eventually became the Communist Party. So when you hear Bolshevik, it means communist. And Hitler fearmongered non-stop about cultural Bolsheviks invading and taking control of everything across the world. The Bolsheviks are slipping their agenda into every part of our cultural communism, cultural Marxism, cultural Bolshevism. It's all from Hitler. And I can prove that if need be. This is a book written by Richard J. Evans titled The Coming of the Third Reich, The History of the Third Reich. Let me just read a little excerpt from it so you have an idea of what we're dealing with here, okay? This is under a chapter titled Culture Wars. Culture wars were a big part of Nazi Germany. That is one of their methods of getting people whipped into a blood frenzy the way that they did. The emergence of the sensationalist popular press was only one among many new and, for some people, disquieting developments on the media and cultural scene in the 1920s and 30s. Experimental literature, the concrete poetry of the Dadaists, the modernist novels of Alfred Doblin, the social critical plays of Belrolt Brecht, the biting polemical journalism of Kurt Tucholsky and Karl von Ossietzky, all divided readers between a minority who rose to the challenge of the new and the majority who regarded such work as cultural Bolshevism. Cultural Bolshevism. Cultural Marxism. Alongside the vibrant radical literacy culture of Berlin, there was another literary word appealing to the conservative nationalist part of the middle classes, rooted in nostalgia for the lost Bismarckian past and prophesying its return with the longed-for collapse of the Weimar Republic. Just like 4 pages later, we have another little section on cultural Bolshevism, okay? The conservative composer Hans Pfitzner, I'm butchering names, I apologize, struck a chord when he denounced such tendencies as symptoms of national degeneracy and ascribed them to Jewish influences and cultural Bolshevism, cultural Marxism, cultural communism. The German musical tradition 300 had been protected from such threats, which were made more acute by the Prussian government, but Prussia was one of the German states at the time, by the Prussian government's appointment in 1925 of the Austrian Jewish atonalist Arnold Schoenberg to teach composition at the State Music Academy in Berlin. Cultural Marxism is like taking that economic system of communism, where to each their need and from each their ability, or whatever the hell the saying is, and applying that to social issues. Like, here's an example of cultural Marxism, quote unquote, affirmative action. Perfect example. If people have everything else equal, same exact resume, same exact amount of experience, same exact education, everything's the same, then you tend to favor the candidate that would correct a disproportionality in your company, right? So 15% of the United States is made up of black people, and there are only 8% black people employed here at your company, of like Procter & Gamble, for example. So all other things being equal, you will lean toward making things more fair. That's cultural Marxism in the minds of Americans today. And that is the exact verbiage, the same term that Hitler used to attack affirmative action-like programs in Germany. Anytime you listen to Lara Logan attack cultural Marxism, realize that it's right from the lips of Hitler. Like, she is quoting Hitler when she says this.
Well, that ties into cultural Marxism, right? Which they now try to tell you is a buzzword of the far evil right. Give me a break, okay? We don't care about you and your stupid propaganda and your labels and everything else. Cultural Marxism was imported to this country by the Franklin Institute shortly before the Second World War, because essentially what had happened is the Bolsheviks realized that because...
Are you catching me? Bolsheviks? All of these words were used by Hitler, like out of his mouth, to whip people into a blood frenzy. She is doing exactly what Hitler did to get people upset over what was happening in society or whatever.
Shortly before the Second World War, because essentially what had happened is the Bolsheviks realized that because of the American dream, the American worker, the proletariat in this country, was never going to be a reliable partner for Marxists. So what did they do? They switched. They shifted their emphasis to cultural Marxism. And these are, now, if you look at the
Again, cultural Marxism, cultural Bolshevism, same thing.
Institute, who partnered, by the way, with Columbia University. What is Columbia University doing and pushing today? It ain't journalism, that's for sure, right? And so when you...
What's wrong with Columbia University? I live like, I don't know, a few blocks away from Columbia. What's wrong with Columbia? I don't understand. What's your hang up with them? What are they famous for that she doesn't like? Protesting in favor of human rights? Wow, the gall! Can you imagine somebody expressing their free speech on a college campus? Wow. That's messed up, man.
You start to look at these relationships, you can find all of this. It's historical record. Nobody has to take my word for it. But this is the...
And we will not, madam.
But this is the origins of all those things. Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals and the sort of the LSD, free hippie, free love generation, the degradation and breakdown of American traditions and American society. So you find those origins are rooted in a global organization. And if you take a step further back...
Okay, I'm sorry. Those things are rooted in a globalist organization. What is again?
Traditions in American society. So you find those origins are rooted in a.
The things that fight against traditional values and families and whatever are rooted in a globalist organization, a cabal, if you will, that is set out to destroy the earth? What? What does she think they're doing?
In a global organization. And if you take a step further back, what else do you find? Well, way back in the early 1900s, Lenin sent his emissaries all over the world to identify fishes in foreign societies. So,
no f***ing a political figure sends other political figures around to find holes in enemy cultural constructs or whatever. Really? First time hearing of it.
in America, they identified race, which is why you will see Marxism so closely associated with the civil rights movement, right?
Do I find Marxism associated with the civil rights movement? I have not noticed that, actually. You know what I have noticed? Lara Logan, Donald Trump, and others like them. Steve Bannon. God, I have a whole list. Hank Kunneman, Kenneth Copeland. Boy, I'm going now. Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham. Non-stop, constantly talk about Marxism and leftism and Marxism. That's like all they have on their brains. They are trying to attach those two things. I'm not a Marxist, okay? I don't associate myself or anybody I know with Marxism or communism or socialism or whatever. I'm a capitalist. Literally every human being that I know is a capitalist. You can have different degrees of capitalist. Some people want to bake unions right into a company that's above 10 employees or something. That's me. I would like to bake unions into things, but that's not socialism. Does she even know what that is? She lives in an alternate reality. She just went on for literally 2.5, almost 3 minutes about cultural Marxism. She literally just repeated Hitler, nearly verbatim, for 3 minutes. Used to be a reporter of some credibility, used to be somebody important and valuable to society, is now a QAnoner. Let me lay down some other clips from her, since we're talking about her in the first place. This one is from 2023, late November, and she's talking to Charlie Kirk. And it just give it a listen.
Because when one police officer sees another police officer under attack, what's going to happen? He's going to escalate, even though their job is to de-escalate. And on the same side, on the other side, where you have protesters, when you see women being punched in the face or hit in the face.
What fictitious scenario is she drawing up right now, and why?
When you are standing around innocently, you have no idea what is happening way up ahead. You have no idea that there are paid provocateurs in the crowd who are picking a fight with police.
Who? In what scenario? What are you talking about?
And out of nowhere, you're being hit with flashbangs and all kinds of munitions that cause real damage. And these are called less than lethal munitions. And they're called that for a reason. They're not called non-lethal, Charlie.
Well, that's because you can shoot a rubber bullet through somebody's eye and it will kill them. But yeah, if you shoot a rubber bullet at somebody, it's probably not going to kill them generally. What point is she getting to here?
Called non-lethal, Charlie, because they become lethal when used in certain circumstances. So when you look at that West Tunnel where so much of the violence happened.
She's talking about January 6th right now, by the way.
When those munitions are used in that environment, which is a confined space where nobody can go, the police are pushing from one side, and there were people whose job was to push from the other side to capture people in between.
Wait a second now. So she's telling us the people at the Capitol on January 6th were actually paid provocateurs, Antifa members who are presumably being paid by George Soros, right, or something, to show up and start a riot and then blame it on the right. Right, absolutely. And that totally worked, right? Isn't Donald Trump like pushing to pardon these people now, even though he could have done that like when he was still in office but chose not to?
What they're doing is they're hoping that people get injured and they're hoping that people get killed because that feeds the narrative. So an information warfare operation has many different compartments.
What narrative? What people? What the hell is she going on about?
Feeds the narrative. So an information warfare operation has many different compartments, but most importantly...
Wow, it cut off there, really? Did I not get the rest of the clip? I apologize for that, guys. She's about to tell us the most important part of the plan. Rest assured, the entire thing was garbage. All of it, from beginning to end. Oh yeah, you know what, though? I do love this freeze frame. Nothing better. Blaming Antifa for January 6th. Good job. Good job. Hilariously, this clip got her kicked off of Newsmax. Yeah, she's been kicked off of like a bunch of different like news outlets, if you can call them that. I think Fox News, One American News Network, and now Newsmax, they've all kicked her off. And she is, of course, pretending to be a victim. She was mistreated. Blah, 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 blah. You know how it goes. This is the video that did it for Newsmax.
God believes that in sovereignty and national identity and the sanctity of family and all the things that we've lived with from the beginning of time. And he knows that the open border is Satan's way of taking control of the world through all of these people who are his stooges and his servants.
The open border is Satan's way of taking control of the United States because immigrants are agents of Satan. Okay, go on.
And they may think that they're going to become gods. That's what they tell us. Yuval Noah Harari and all the rest of them at the World Economic Forum.
Who the hell says they're going to be gods? What? The World Economic Forum is this organization, like an international organization, that invites really, really filthy rich people every year. Like the richest people in the world, you know, from China, from Europe, from America, Brazil, everywhere. And the richest people show up, and the World Economic Forum does statistical analysis to determine where a certain amount of money would be best spent. Say you get like a $50 million donation from all of the richest people on planet Earth. What can we do with that $50 million to improve conditions of humanity worldwide? And one of their initiatives was to get everybody in the Congo, or I don't remember which, some African country, get them all inoculated from polio, because there's a polio outbreak there. So Bill Gates donated like a ton of money to get this African country inoculated from polio, and it was successful. Anyway, that's what the World Economic Forum does. They just draw up plans for what they can do with this money to improve the world. And every year they hold a summit to discuss their goals for the following year and their ideals. And they give out like awards. You helped humanity the most this year, or whatever other thing. Trump's been invited. Elon Musk was invited. I think he attended. Bill Gates and George Soros and a whole bunch of other people. That's the WEF, right? Well, when COVID hit, the World Economic Forum, led by Klaus Schwab, said, "This is a delicate moment in history where we have an opportunity to reset the world economies to be more beneficial to the working class and the poor than to the ultra rich." And he wrote a book about it. It's not a long book, and it doesn't really have any plans. He was just outlining why this is a good moment in human history to reset economies and how we might go about doing some of that. And just like that, weirdly, a plan that threatens the well-being and the status of people as filthy rich, a plan that challenges that comes out, and overnight, practically, a conspiracy theory arises from the ashes and spreads like wildfire all over everything. All you hear about is a great reset on QAnon boards and pro-Trump boards and 4chan and 8chan and every other chan from here to Texas. It's all the Great Reset. Can they articulate what that is? 90% of the time, the answer is no. The people complaining about it have no idea. They just think it's like the ultra-rich's method of controlling the world or whatever nonsense. So anyway, the WEF, anytime you hear any attacks on the WEF, the World Economic Forum, or Davos, where they meet, it's Great Reset conspiracy stuff. And that's what she's laying down for us right now.
People who are his stooges and his servants, and they may think that they're going to become gods. That's what they tell us. Yuval Noah Harari and all the rest of them at the World Economic Forum.
There you go.
You know, the ones who want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that while they dine on the blood of children.
Again, that did not happen. There was a report released that said that there's going to come a time, if we don't change things, where protein is extremely scarce on the planet because of climate change. You're going to have trouble growing beans and like keeping cows alive and stuff. And our whole distribution network and everything is all going to have to change from the ground up. And in that interim period, we might not have a choice but to like work bugs in as part of our protein diet, or we will all die. That's what that report was about. I don't even think that came from the WEF. That was just like a report by scientists. If you want to avoid that, there's a quick and easy way to do it. Renewable energy. But okay. Complain about the WEF. I guess that does a lot of good for everybody. Right. Anyway, like these people all live in a fantasy land.
Who want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that while they dine on the blood of children. Yeah. Those are the people, right? They're not... Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And she slipped the dine on the blood of children bit in there, too. Yeah, that's an old accusation against the Jewish community. The claim that they mix children into matzo balls or matzo ball soup or whatever it is. It's called blood libel, and it's been around since the dawn of time, practically. It's because Jews have historically been separate from other cultures and societies. They've lived separately. They have different sets of moral values and practices, certain ways of treating the dead, for example. And it's been weird, alien, odd, questionable to other groups throughout history. So these groups, looking at this minority that's kind of weird to them, of course, come up with conspiracy theories. They're eating children over there. And now they make that same claim about atheists. It's just absurd.
The rest of them at the World Economic Forum, you know, the ones who want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that while they dine on the blood of children. Yeah. Those are the people, right? They're not going to win. They're not going to win.
Yeah, that's the interview that got her banned. Because she spread all kinds of nonsensical trash. I love everything about it. This woman needs help, though, seriously. I can't even believe that she somehow managed to get as high as she did in, I think it was CBS, to gain so much legitimacy as she did. My God, dude, that's crazy. Yeah, check this one out. I got one more.
We live in a nation of potential collaborators.
Dude on the left, Stu Peters, full-blown Nazi, Hitler-loving Nazi, says Hitler did heroic acts. And on the right is a QAnoner, and they say we live in a country of potential collaborators.
And if we don't reduce the price of standing up, if we don't make it less costly and encourage more people to stand, that is what lies ahead for all of us. When they come and say, who were the ones who voted for Trump? Who were the ones with Trump signs in their front porch?
Is somebody doing that? Is a member of the government writing a database of anybody who supported Donald Trump so they can prosecute them criminally for it? Like what?
Who were the Proud Boys? Who were the Oath Keepers? When they come to, who wouldn't comply?
Who were the journalists?
Who are the journalists? Who didn't get a vaccine?
Nobody cares if you got a vaccine. You don't have a right to be around my kid at school, of course. But if you don't want a vaccine, go off and live your life without one. Fine. Honestly, I'm not sure if I've been vaccinated because my mom was one of those crunchy mommy, health food. I even had like a homeopathic doctor, the whole 9 yards when I was little. Anyway, God, it's crazy. I had a chiropractor, guys. Those things are fake as a chiropractor. They don't know what they're doing. They did not go to med school, okay? Don't go to a chiropractor. Anyway, yeah, crunchy mommy stuff is the point.
Who are the journalists?
Who are the journalists who didn't get a vaccine? When they come for us, our neighbors will be raising their hands to lead the killing squads to our doors.
So what'd she say? So be quiet? She thinks they're going to be killing squads for not getting vaccinated. Really? This is insane. Did you go to public school? Yes, I did. Elementary school, yeah. And in West Virginia, you know what? Come to think of it, it is a legal requirement to be vaccinated in public school for West Virginia. So I guess I have been vaccinated. Not every public school, though. Or not every state, I mean. There are some states out there that do not legally require vaccines. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This is disappointing, man. For society's sake, this is disappointing.